Spartanburg 911. My brother just came to my house and told me that he killed his girlfriend and put her in Cleveland Park Lake. Blood was found underneath the carpet. Right here, there were a couple of bones on the surface. On Monday, June 14, 2004, the family of 24-year-old Tamika Houston made a desperate call to report her disappearance. For weeks, the young woman had been missing without any sign of her whereabouts.
I called police and said that there's clearly something wrong. I can't locate my niece. She's not returning anyone's phone calls.
When the Spartanburg Police Department agreed to conduct a welfare check, they hoped that Tamika had simply left town without informing anyone. However, as they approached her small home on Harvard Drive, something didn't feel right. Her black 991 Honda CRX was missing, and the house seemed unusually quiet. The officers knocked several times, but there was no response. After circling the property, they noticed a window slightly ajar. Climbing through the opening, the officers discovered an unsettling scene inside. On the kitchen counter was an uncashed paycheck, a small but telling sign that Tamika hadn't planned to be gone for long. The room showed no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no overturned furniture. But as they continued their search, a foul odor filled the air. Following the smell, they stumbled upon a heartbreaking sight: Tamika's loyal pit bull, surrounded by a litter of puppies. The dogs were in poor condition, left without care for days, and the room was in a deplorable state. The dog had drunk all the water out of its bowl, eaten all of its food, drank all the water out of the toilet. It was just obvious that she had not been there in quite some time. Tamika would never have left her dogs to suffer like this. Something was terribly wrong. Where was she? What had happened? Hello and welcome back. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell. In today's episode, we're diving into the tragic story of Tamika Houston, which sent shockwaves through the Black community in America. Let's get back to the case. American Idol dream. Tamika Antoinette Houston was born on December 11, 1979, in Spartanburg, South Carolina, to Father Anthony Houston and Mother Gabriella Simonihi. Tamika was the third of 4 siblings and shared a close bond with her family. After high school, Tamika worked as a waitress, embracing her independence by moving into a small house on Harvard Drive in Spartanburg. Her first act of freedom was adopting a pit bull named Macy, who quickly became her loyal companion and the heart of her home. Singing was Tamika's true passion, and she became a key member of the church choir. In 2003, she decided to pursue her dream of entering the music industry by auditioning for the reality TV show American Idol in Atlanta, Georgia. Unfortunately, she didn't make it past the first round. Despite this setback, Tamika didn't give up on her dreams. She returned to nursing school, determined to make a meaningful impact in the world with her new passion. Her life was full of promise. By May 2004, Tamika was preparing for summer break after a challenging school term, but things would take a tragic turn. No one had heard from her for a few days. At first, her family wasn't too concerned. Tamika had always been spontaneous, often going on trips or taking time for herself. It wasn't unusual for her to be out of contact for a few days. However, after 2 weeks with no word, her family began to worry. Tamika's aunt, Rebecca Howard, couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She contacted the Spartanburg Police Department, hoping that a welfare check on Tamika's home would offer some answers. The police soon informed Tamika's family of her abandoned house and the tragic condition of her dogs. The news sent chills through their hearts. This wasn't a case of someone taking a carefree getaway. Authorities issued an all-points bulletin, BOLO, for Tamika and her missing car while her family sprang into action. They plastered the community with missing person flyers, desperately hoping someone would come forward with a clue or any information that might help find her.
As a mother, it's very difficult not knowing where my daughter is or hoping that and thinking that she's okay.
Detectives Steve Lamb and Jay Stedman were assigned to the urgent case of Tamika Houston's disappearance. Acting quickly, they subpoenaed her banking and cell phone records to trace her last known movements. However, the results were disappointing. Tamika's phone had been silent, and her bank account had shown no activity since early May 2004. The findings only confirmed what her family had been fearing. No one had seen or heard from Tamika in weeks.
It could have been a traffic accident off the side of a road, and which would still be a tragedy, but it would be a criminal tragedy.
Despite the grim details, investigators were hesitant to believe that Tamika had simply chosen to disappear on her own. After all, an adult had the right to vanish if they wished. The violent ex-boyfriend. Tamika's family, however, sensed that something was deeply wrong. They urged the police to look into a man named Terrence Moss, Tamika's ex-boyfriend. The couple had recently gone through a turbulent breakup, and the lingering tensions between them could have played a role in her disappearance. Detectives began digging into Terrence's background and uncovered a troubling criminal history. His record included charges of domestic violence and other minor infractions. Even more concerning, Tamika had filed a domestic violence charge against him. The hearing for that charge was scheduled for just a week after she was reported missing.
She was a victim of domestic violence. She's supposed to go to court and testify against this guy.
Tamika's sudden disappearance just days before she was scheduled to testify seemed too coincidental, raising two potential motives. Perhaps Tamika had left town to avoid the stress and anxiety of facing her ex-boyfriend in court, or more ominously, Terrence might have taken steps to silence her before she could testify. In a shocking twist, investigators uncovered a voicemail left by Terrence for Tamika's aunt asking where she was. This unexpected message raised further suspicions, suggesting Terrence might have known more about her whereabouts than he had previously let on. "Hi, Becky, this is Terrence. I have been trying to get in contact with Tamika, Nobody seems to have heard from her, so I just want to know she's safe. That's all. Thank you." After learning that the police were looking for him, Terrence Moss voluntarily arrived at the Spartanburg police station on June 23, 2004 for questioning. He expressed concern for Tamika's well-being and claimed he wanted to assist the investigation in any way he could. During questioning, Terrence admitted to having a turbulent relationship with Tamika. They had been together since 2000 and lived together until March 2004. He acknowledged that they had a violent argument, during which he had struck Tamika. The fight led to Tamika kicking him out of their shared home, and she had immediately filed a domestic abuse charge against him.
I punched her. I actually punched her. And I fell down on my knees and I started praying, and I was like, it's just so many demons in here that, we're becoming physical with each other now that we just need to separate.
However, Terrence vehemently denied any involvement in Tamika's disappearance. He expressed deep regret for the incident in which he had struck her and insisted that he was genuinely concerned for her well-being when he learned that she was missing. Despite the tensions in their relationship, Terrence maintained that he had nothing to do with her vanishing.
As we kept pressuring and pushing and repeating questions to him, he became agitated and finally just shut down from us and refused to talk to us completely.
Terrence Moss is prime suspect number one.
For the time being, Terrence was considered the prime suspect. However, without any physical evidence linking him to Tamika's disappearance, the authorities had no choice but to release him. They kept him under close watch, hoping that he might slip up or reveal something that could strengthen their case. The 911 call. The police intensified their efforts to uncover any trace of Tamika. They checked hospital records, examined local mortuary files for unidentified women reported between May and June 2004, and reviewed accident reports. They also sifted through 911 call logs, and it was there that they discovered a chilling lead. Someone had placed a call to report a woman's murder, claiming that her body had been dumped in Cleveland Park Lake, which was very close to Tamika's home. The call had been made in June, around the same time Tamika had disappeared. This new information added a disturbing twist to the investigation. Spartanburg 911. "My brother just came to my house and told me that he killed his girlfriend and put her in Cleveland Park Lake. Where's he live? He's staying over there at, Barksdale." Investigators launched an extensive search operation. Divers braved the murky waters of Cleveland Park Lake, combing through its depths for any signs of human remains, while search teams scoured the surrounding woods and foliage with cadaver dogs. Hours passed, but the search yielded no results. The body was nowhere to be found. To the detectives, it felt like a cruel diversion. Attempts to trace the anonymous 911 call led to a dead end. It had been made from a prepaid, untraceable burner phone used near Cleveland Park Lake. Despite this setback, a small glimmer of hope remained. No body meant there was still a chance that Tamika could be alive. Meanwhile, Tamika's family continued their relentless efforts to find her. They distributed flyers throughout the community and updated the public on her disappearance, offering a $50,000 reward for any information that could lead to her return. One of the flyers posted at a local gas station caught the attention of a woman who immediately contacted the authorities. The key evidence. 1 week after Tamika Houston was reported missing, a local woman reached out to the Spartanburg Police Department, reporting an abandoned car in the parking lot of the Barksdale Apartments. The car had been sitting there, untouched, for several days. It was a black 1991 Honda CRX, the same car that Tamika had driven. This new lead brought fresh urgency to the investigation. Sunday, I got called at home and said that patrol officers had found her vehicle on other side of town. Investigators and forensic units quickly rushed to the Barksdale apartment complex, located just 4 miles from Tamika's home. Their suspicions were confirmed when a check of the license plates matched the records they had on file. But the crucial question remained: had Tamika herself left the car there, or had someone else abandoned it to cover their tracks? Forensic specialists thoroughly searched the vehicle for any signs of foul play. They found no bloodstains, no signs of a struggle, and nothing obvious to suggest any violence had occurred inside the car. It was a puzzling discovery that left the investigators with more questions than answers. There's really nothing forensic-wise we recovered from that vehicle. It wasn't like there was her blood or DNA or anything. As police carefully dusted the car for fingerprints, a partial print found on the steering wheel caught their attention. This could be a potential breakthrough, possibly linking a suspect to the car. But the discoveries didn't stop there. Beneath the front passenger seat, investigators found another significant clue: a set of keys. These new findings added layers of intrigue to the case, raising more questions about what had really happened and who might be involved.
You could see that one looked like an automobile key and one looked like a house key.
Back at the police station, the partial fingerprint found on the steering wheel was run through the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, IAFIS, a database designed to match fingerprints against known criminal records. Unfortunately, the results came back empty. The person who left the print on the steering wheel had no recorded criminal history, or perhaps had carefully avoided detection in the past. This setback led detectives to rule out Tamika's ex-boyfriend, Terrence Moss, as a suspect, despite his violent history with her. Detectives then shifted their focus to the set of keys. They tested them at Tamika's car, but none of the keys fit. They tried them at Tamika's home, but again, the keys were useless. The repeated dead ends led to a chilling realization: these keys likely belonged to the person who had taken Tamika. A closer inspection revealed a stamped code on the keys, AA14. Detectives began reaching out to local locksmiths, hoping someone might recognize the code and be able to identify the key's origin. After 5 months of searching, one locksmith finally recognized the AA14 code. This small breakthrough promised to take the investigation in a new direction. When this particular key was brought to us, we knew it was a housing authority key, so we then cross-referenced it, and we saw the AA14 match the Fremont School apartment. The locksmith explained that the keys were custom-made for the Fremont School apartment complex, a historic building in Spartanburg that had been converted into public housing units. Originally an elementary school, the building had a unique history, now housing 46 units spread across a labyrinth of hallways and doors. Detectives tested the set of keys on every door in the building, but each attempt ended in failure. Just as they were starting to lose hope, one of the keys finally turned in a lock and opened a basement door. This unexpected discovery reignited their determination, as it could be the lead they had been desperately searching for.
It fit a door in the basement. And the door that it fit in the basement, when it opened up, that was an apartment that was closed. It had been taken offline because of flood issues.
The basement apartment had suffered significant flooding, leaving the space abandoned with peeling paint, water-damaged walls, and mold creeping into every corner. It was evident that the unit hadn't been occupied for some time. Detectives carefully gathered potential evidence and sent it to the crime lab for analysis. While investigating, detectives spoke with a maintenance worker who revealed an unusual policy. The building manager would swap doorknobs and locks between vacant apartments and occupied ones without keeping any records. This was done to prevent tenants who were evicted or behind on rent from re-entering with old keys. This policy made it nearly impossible to trace the origin of the AA-14 keys. However, the maintenance worker provided a list of former tenants who had once lived in the building. When the crime lab results came back, they were a crushing disappointment. The evidence collected from the basement apartment yielded no signs that Tamika had ever been there. Another dead end. The mysterious Chris. As detectives pored over the list of former tenants, one name stood out: Chris. Though Tamika's family didn't recognize the name, one of her close friends did. The friend recalled that Tamika had mentioned dating someone named Chris after her breakup with Terrence. There was only one Chris on the tenant list: Christopher Hampton. A background check on Christopher Hampton revealed a troubling criminal history. At just 23 years old, Christopher had a serious record, including a conviction for bank robbery in 2000. He had recently served a 30-day sentence for a traffic violation after breaching his parole conditions, meaning he had been jailed without a hearing. But crucially, Christopher had not been in jail at the time of Tamika's disappearance. In fact, he had been evicted from his apartment at the Fremont School Complex just 1 month after Tamika went missing. Detectives quickly tracked down Christopher and brought him in for questioning in late June 2004. During the interrogation, Christopher admitted that he had been dating Tamika but denied any involvement in her disappearance. According to him, Tamika had been planning to attend Bike Week, an annual motorcycle rally in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He suggested that she had left Spartanburg to enjoy the event.
She said, I want to go to Bike Week.
She said who she was going with?
No, she didn't say. She said she was going.
Did you see her at any point after that?
Nah, that's the last time I seen her.
Detectives were eager to determine whether Christopher's fingerprints matched the partial print found in Tamika's car. But after careful comparison, the results came back negative. His prints did not match. Without physical evidence linking him to the car or Tamika's disappearance, investigators had no grounds to hold him. Christopher was released. Chris was backstabbed. Still, Tamika's family refused to let the case go cold. Determined to keep the investigation alive, they reached out to television host John Walsh, urging law enforcement to feature Tamika's story on America's Most Wanted in hopes of generating new leads through the public's help. Tamika Houston is a young woman who disappeared down in South Carolina. All the leads that we've chased down have run into basically a dead end, and their efforts paid off. A woman came forward claiming to be Christopher Hampton's ex-wife. She had recently received a package from him while he was serving time in jail. Inside the package were personal items, his wallet, and a photograph of her with their 2 children. But something about the photo stopped her cold. A red stain smeared across the image. Concerned, she turned the photo over to authorities, suspecting the stain might be something more than just a spill, possibly evidence that could help answer the questions surrounding Tamika's disappearance.
She says, I've got his wallet if y'all want to come look at it.
She also said there was a tiny speck of blood on the wallet.
It was very important. If it wasn't for that media coverage there, that young lady may have never came.
Detectives quickly sent the stained photograph to the lab for analysis. Within days, the results confirmed their deepest concerns. The red stain was indeed human blood. Investigators then approached Tamika's parents and requested a DNA sample for comparison. After weeks of waiting, the results finally arrived. The blood on the photo was a definitive match to Tamika Houston. With this crucial breakthrough, detectives brought Christopher Hampton back in for further questioning. But even in the face of new evidence, Christopher continued to deny any connection to Tamika's disappearance. He insisted that the presence of her blood was purely a coincidence, offering no explanation for how it ended up on a personal item he sent from jail.
Whatever happened to Tamika happened right there in your apartment.
Yeah, I believe that. How you know that blood? It could be anybody's blood.
No, it can't be anybody's blood. How long you think we've been doing this? You don't know that we can tell one person's blood from another blood? You ever heard of DNA?
Yep.
The DNA evidence created a powerful connection between Christopher and Tamika, but it wasn't enough to close the case. Without a confirmed cause of death or additional supporting evidence, prosecutors knew that securing a conviction in court would be difficult. Investigators needed more, something that could tell the full story of what happened to Tamika and hold the person responsible fully accountable.
But you still got murder, manslaughter, involuntary, self-defense, accident. What do you have to fill in any of those 5 scenarios? Right.
Detectives intensified their search for Tamika, scouring hospital records, emergency calls, and launching a broad citywide effort. Just as leads seemed to dry up, a new tip came in, this time from a teenager with first-hand knowledge. 215, the apartment from hell. In September 2004, a young woman contacted the Spartanburg Police Department with critical information. She said she had briefly dated Christopher Hampton around May 2004, the same time Tamika went missing. She revealed that during one of her visits to Christopher's apartment, Unit 215, she noticed a large, dark reddish stain on the bedroom floor. It struck her as odd, and she hadn't forgotten it. Detectives moved swiftly but carefully, working to secure a search warrant for apartment 215. They were racing against time. More than a year had passed, and new tenants had likely come and gone. Any potential evidence could have been tampered with or destroyed. Then, on December 24, 2004, another strange twist emerged. Christopher sent a handwritten letter to Special Agent Troy Breeze of the FBI. In it, he claimed that someone had spilled beer, ketchup, and hot sauce on his bedroom floor, which forced him to clean it thoroughly. The timing and nature of the letter raised even more suspicion. He says in the letter, "I went to my apartment and found that somebody had come into my apartment and poured beer on my floor, smeared mayo, ketchup, hot sauce flour, and all kinds of other stuff all over my bedroom floor." And in this letter, he talked about he had rented a carpet cleaner. And instantly, I knew, why is this guy telling us he rented a carpet cleaner? He's telling us it's because he thinks we know something that we don't know. He goes on to say, "I saw 2 last the day before I rented the cleaner. This raised serious concerns." The young woman, whose identity was protected, told investigators she had visited Christopher's apartment 215 and saw a large dark stain on the bedroom floor. When she asked about it, he claimed it was just a spill, but something felt off. Her account, combined with Christopher's letter, gave detectives a crucial lead. When I looked at the show tonight of the America's Most Wanted, they said they was talking. They said that whoever it was said that it was ketchup. That thing did not look like no ketchup. It looked like that was liquid that had been poured. It looked like it was coming from the closet. She described seeing a large reddish-brown stain on the bedroom floor and noticed that Christopher had oddly pushed his dresser against the closet door, something that immediately struck her as suspicious. And he didn't have no cover on his bed. It was just a brand new bed. And his explanation for the stain was that it was red Kool-Aid. Red Kool-Aid, that's what he told me. Christopher told her the stain was just red Kool-Aid. Afraid of raising suspicion, she kept quiet and even stayed the night. To the detective's shock, she revealed she had been only 15 at the time and too scared to speak up. Finally, in July 2005, 14 months after Tamika vanished, investigators obtained a warrant to search the apartment.
Entering apartment 215, Fremont Apartments. There's the entrance door, the living room.
In the bedroom, investigators noticed clear evidence of a recent deep cleaning. A large portion of the carpet had been treated with strong chemicals. When the forensic team carefully removed the top layer, they uncovered a deeply concerning discovery: traces of biological material consistent with dried blood.
When we pulled the carpet up, there was a large reddish-brown stain that was on the back of the carpet and into the padding on the floor.
Luminol testing illuminated the bedroom in an eerie glow. As the lights dimmed, large patches of blood became visible, telling a grim tale. In the closet, the luminol revealed even more, showing extensive stains suggesting significant bleeding. DNA tests were quickly processed using samples from Tamika's parents, and the results confirmed the heartbreaking truth: the blood belonged to Tamika Houston. There's potentially a big break this morning in the case of a missing 24-year-old woman who disappeared last year. Investigators now say they found blood in a former apartment of a person that they've been questioning. The extent of the blood stain suggested a tragic scenario. Investigators speculated that Tamika may have been locked in the closet, gravely injured, and left to bleed while Christopher entertained an underage girl in the apartment. The task was now clear. They needed to locate Tamika's body. On Friday, August 12, 2005, Christopher Hampton was arrested and charged with Tamika Houston's murder. He was brought to the Spartanburg police station for questioning. With mounting evidence against him, Christopher knew denying his involvement wouldn't protect him any longer. Finally, he spoke.
He stands up and he says, "Let's go." We said, "Where are we going? Are we going to the jail? Or are you going to show us where she's at?" He says, "I'll show you where she's at."
That afternoon, Christopher led the police to a dense forest about 12 miles from the city center. He pointed to a patch of earth and revealed it was the location where he had buried Tamika. He even described how he had placed 2 branches in the shape of a cross to mark her shallow grave. Right here, there were a couple bones on the surface. Forensic specialists quickly began the excavation, and it wasn't long before they uncovered skeletal remains. The lower jawbone was intact, but the skull was missing. With great care, the team gathered the remains and transported them to the crime lab. Forensic experts then compared the teeth from the lower jaw to Tamika Houston's dental records, confirming it was a match. Tamika had finally been found. Christopher was brought back for questioning, where he eventually confessed to what had happened that tragic night. He explained that Tamika had unexpectedly arrived at his apartment and demanded money. Christopher shared that he had been saving for an unborn child with another woman. Hurt and angry over his perceived betrayal, their argument escalated into violence. She said she wanted to borrow money. So I said, "I ain't got it right now." I said, "I got a ticket coming up I got to pay," I said, "and plus my baby, she's about to be born, I got to buy some stuff for her." "Okay, then what happened?" And she got mad. Well, gosh, she says, you always talking about that baby, you making enough money, you give me some money now." She's yap, yap, yap. She stood up and I'm saying she went hard. She yap, 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 so what happened? I just turned around and swung the iron. In a moment of rage, Christopher struck Tamika in the head with a hot iron. The blow caused her to bleed heavily, and 1 drop of blood splashed onto the photograph in his open wallet. Overcome with panic, Christopher claimed he didn't know what to do. He wrapped her body in bed sheets, dragged it into the closet, and barricaded the door with his dresser to conceal it. Astonishingly, he went out that evening and returned with a teenage girl he had been seeing. They spent the night in the apartment, unaware of Tamika's body hidden just behind the closet door. The next morning, Christopher borrowed a friend's car to dispose of her body, driving aimlessly until he found a secluded, forested area where he buried her. "What do you do next?" "I buried her, I put dirt back on top of her." "Did you put anything else on top of it?" "I made a cross with it, with the trees. A cross." "Was you doing that just as a burial for her or something? Or why'd you do that?" I guess because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it." Finally, Christopher abandoned Tamika's car at another apartment complex and accidentally left behind his set of keys, which would ultimately lead detectives back to him. Justice for Tamika. While in jail awaiting trial, Christopher spoke to reporters and claimed that Tamika's death had been an accident. He expressed regret and said he was haunted by the news coverage of Tamika's grieving family. Shockingly, just a few months after burying her, he returned to the grave, dug up Tamika's body, and removed her skull. His chilling reasoning was that by discarding the skull in a city dumpster, he hoped to conceal the identification of her remains. Though Christopher claimed to feel remorse, his actions and repeated denials painted a different picture. Spartanburg County Prosecutor Trey Gowdy began preparing for Christopher Hampton's murder trial. With a mountain of evidence, including forensic proof, witness testimonies, and Christopher's own recorded confession, the case against him appeared ironclad. However, at his arraignment, Christopher pleaded not guilty and remained in the Spartanburg County Jail as the trial date approached. By the final week of March 2006, jury selection began, setting the stage for a courtroom battle to deliver justice for Tamika. On Monday, April 3, 2006, Christopher Hampton's murder trial commenced. In a surprising twist, Christopher stood up and requested permission from the judge to address the court. He changed his plea to guilty. His defense team appealed to the judge for leniency, arguing that Christopher's decision to plead guilty showed genuine remorse and requested a maximum prison term of 40 years. Are you guilty of the crime of murder? Yes, sir. I don't know why he pled guilty. He wound up getting the exact same sentence that he would have gotten had he gone to trial and lost Mr. Hampton. The sentence of the court is that you be committed to the State Department of Corrections for life. In a strong and decisive ruling, the judge sentenced Christopher Hampton to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was transferred to the Broad River Correctional Institution, where he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Reports from the prison show that Hampton has repeatedly violated prison rules and faced multiple disciplinary actions. The tragic story of Tamika Houston highlights a larger societal issue: the disparity in media coverage for missing persons cases, particularly those involving individuals of color. When Tamika went missing in 2004, her family struggled to gain national attention. At the same time, the cases of missing young white women such as Lossie Peterson, Lori Hacking, Jennifer Wilbanks, and Natalie Holloway dominated national news. These cases were treated like serialized dramas, with daily updates capturing audience attention. In contrast, Tamika's story was largely confined to local news in Spartanburg, leaving her family feeling abandoned when they needed visibility the most. This unequal focus sparked the national conversation around the term missing white woman syndrome. For Tamika's aunt, Rebecca Howard, the media's bias was both heartbreaking and frustrating. She fought tirelessly to raise awareness for missing women of color, and her efforts did not go unnoticed. In 2006, her campaign inspired two women, Derica and Natalie Wilson, to co-found the Black and Missing Foundation. To date, this nonprofit has assisted in over 300 missing persons cases. In 2022, Tamika's story gained new attention through the podcast Finding Tamika. The series revisited the details of her disappearance and murder while exploring the broader issues of racial bias in media coverage of missing persons cases. As we close this chapter on Tamika Houston's story, we invite you to reflect on the impact her life and case have had on society. Tamika's story is a powerful reminder that families and loved ones are often the most passionate advocates for justice, even when the world seems indifferent. Her family's strength and resilience have not only brought awareness to her case, but also contributed to a larger movement for equal representation. On January 9, 2017, the Houston family suffered another devastating blow. Paramedics found Tamika's father, Anthony Houston, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. His wife was also shot and was alive when emergency services arrived, but later passed away at the hospital. The incident was ruled a murder-suicide. Friends who knew the couple were stunned, as there had been no visible signs of trouble. Tamika's death left a lasting impact in two profound ways: within her family and in the larger conversation about representation and safety. Her aunt channeled her grief into meaningful change, while her father, Anthony, suffered in silence, overwhelmed by pain until the very end. What do you think? Will Tamika's legacy continue to inspire change as her aunt envisioned? Can we as a society overcome racial biases? Does Christopher Hampton ever truly feel remorse for his actions? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. If there's a case you'd like to see covered, let us know. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and remember to advocate for those whose voices can no longer be heard.